America's most cherished holiday, was built on a foundation of pure absurdity. Before it became about polite family dinners, its history was defined by launching flaming birds across football fields, adopting the main course as a White House pet, and terrifying children with monstrous parade balloons. We've found 33 historical facts that prove Thanksgiving has always been wonderfully, unapologetically dumb. 1. For an astonishing 60 years, the town of Yellville, Arkansas, celebrated Thanksgiving with a tradition so uniquely moronic it defies all logic: the turkey drop. During their annual festival, organizers would load live, terrified turkeys onto a low-flying airplane and unceremoniously shove them out the door from 500 feet. The official, and I use that term loosely, justification was that domestic turkeys could use their wings to glide gently to the ground. This is, to put it mildly, a bold-faced lie. These birds, bred for their meat, not their aeronautical skills, plummeted like feathered sacks of cement. It was a grotesque spectacle of animal cruelty disguised as a quirky small-town tradition, a lesson in gravity that absolutely no one asked for. It only ended after decades of national outrage finally convinced them that maybe, just maybe, throwing birds out of a plane wasn't the best look. 2. Just when you thought humanity's Thanksgiving ideas couldn't get any worse, a group of students in Indiana stepped up to say, "Hold my beer and watch this." They invented a tradition known as the flaming turkey toss. The ritual, if you can call it that, involved taking a rock-solid frozen turkey, inexplicably dressing it in a child's onesie for reasons that remain a baffling mystery, soaking the entire ensemble in lighter fluid, and then setting it on fire. The grand finale? Launching this blazing poultry comet across a football field. This isn't just a bad idea. It's a symphony of terrible decisions, a trifecta of fire hazards, food waste, and pure, unadulterated stupidity. It's the kind of event where the fire department shows up before you've even sent the invitations. 3. In 1926, a very special Thanksgiving delivery arrived at the White House for President Calvin Coolidge. It wasn't a delegation of foreign dignitaries. It was a live raccoon from Mississippi, sent with the explicit instruction that it be cooked and served for the holiday feast. Now, most presidents might have politely declined, but Silent Cal did something far stranger. He took one look at the creature, decided against eating it, and promptly adopted it as a family pet. He named her Rebecca, and she became a minor celebrity, complete with a custom-made collar, a treehouse on the White House grounds, and free rein to cause chaos during state events. Long before the presidential turkey pardon became a PR stunt, Rebecca the raccoon received the original and far more meaningful Thanksgiving clemency. 4. The 1970s gave us many questionable innovations, but few are as baffling as the Thanksgiving dinner in a can aerosol spray. A company decided that the hours of cooking and wonderful aromas that fill a home were just too much work. Their solution: an air freshener that promised to instantly replicate the scent of roast turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and pumpkin pie with a single press of a button. The reality, according to those who were unfortunate enough to smell it, was an aggressive chemical assault. Instead of a cozy, nostalgic scent, it was more like the smell of a TV dinner's ghost mixed with industrial cleaning solvents. It was the perfect product for someone who wanted their house to smell like a culinary crime had just been committed. 5. Here's a holiday activity that perfectly combines post-dinner lethargy with a complete disregard for the main course: frozen turkey bowling. In certain corners of America, it's a perfectly normal tradition to take a 15-pound solidly frozen bird, tuck it under your arm, and hurl it down a driveway at a set of pins, which are usually plastic soda bottles. The physics of it are a nightmare. The bird is lopsided, impossibly heavy, and has the aerodynamic properties of a small boulder. But the sheer absurdity is the appeal. It's probably the only sport in the world where, after the final frame, you can take your bowling ball home, thaw it out, and serve it for dinner. It's a testament to the human ability to turn literally anything into a bizarre competitive game. 6. Today's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is a showcase of beloved family-friendly cartoon characters. But the parade's first ever giant balloon, which debuted in 1928, was something straight out of a nightmare. It wasn't Snoopy or Mickey Mouse. It was a nameless, monstrous, humanoid figure with a lumpy, misshapen head, a terrifying fixed grin, and soulless, vacant eyes. Its proportions were all wrong, giving it an unsettling, uncanny valley vibe that was far more likely to traumatize children than to delight them. Imagine looking up and seeing not a cheerful cartoon character, but a floating demon toddler drifting ominously down Broadway. It's a miracle the parade even continued after a debut. That creepy. 7. On December 19, 1973, late-night legend Johnny Carson made a casual joke on his show about a potential toilet paper shortage. He was, of course, completely kidding. But millions of Americans watching at home didn't get the memo. The result was immediate, nationwide pandemonium. The next morning, people swarmed supermarkets, clearing shelves of every roll of toilet paper they could find, hoarding it like it was gold. For weeks, a genuine Carson-induced shortage plagued the country. It was a stunning demonstration of the power of television and a hilarious, if slightly concerning look at how quickly society can crumble over the fear of running out of two-ply. It remains, arguably, the single most impactful joke ever told in American history. 8. The idea that turkeys are so profoundly stupid that they will stare up at the rain with their mouths open until they drown is a classic piece of Thanksgiving folklore. It's the go-to example of their alleged brainlessness, painting a picture of a bird that can be outsmarted by a simple weather event. As satisfyingly dumb as this sounds, it's a myth. The behavior is actually linked to a rare genetic condition called tetanic torticollis spasms, which causes an involuntary upward craning of the neck. It's not stupidity, it's a neurological disorder. But let's be honest, the myth is just too funny to die. It has cemented the turkey's reputation as the fool of the animal kingdom, even if science insists it's not their fault. 9. Imagine you've just pulled off the first ever giant parade balloon, a massive Felix the cat floating majestically through New York City in 1927. The crowd loves it, the event is a huge success, and now there's just one tiny problem. You have absolutely no plan for how to get the air out of it. This was the exact situation for the Macy's parade organizers. Their state-of-the-art solution? They just let it go. They untethered the enormous cat and let it drift away into the sky, presumably hoping it would become someone else's problem. The grand finale of this brilliant plan came when Felix collided with some telephone wires, where it unceremoniously popped and deflated. It was less of a gentle farewell and more of a public execution by utility pole, a truly spectacular and idiotic end to a historic flight. 10. There are moments in culinary history that make you question humanity's collective sanity, and the turducken is one of them. For the uninitiated, this is not a mythical beast. It is a very real and very intense dish. It's a deboned chicken, stuffed inside a deboned duck, which is then stuffed inside a deboned turkey. It is a poultry nesting doll of pure gluttony, a meat matryoshka created by someone who clearly thought the only thing wrong with Thanksgiving dinner was that it didn't involve enough birds crammed into each other. This culinary monstrosity has become so iconic in its absurdity that the word turducken was officially added to the dictionary, cementing its status as a legitimate, albeit insane, part of our culture. It's the Mount Everest of holiday dishes. You attempt it simply because it's there. 11. Before the friendly, inflatable faces of Snoopy and SpongeBob graced the Macy's parade route, the organizers went for a more organic approach to entertainment. The very first parade in 1924 featured no balloons at all. Instead, they borrowed live animals from the Central Park Zoo. This wasn't just a few ponies. We're talking a full-on procession of bears, monkeys, camels, and even elephants marching through the crowded streets of Manhattan. It was a logistical and public safety nightmare waiting to happen. Forget the fear of a balloon deflating. Shoppers had to contend with the very real possibility of being trampled by a confused elephant or having their hat stolen by a mischievous monkey. They wisely switched to balloons soon after, presumably because they were less likely to eat a spectator. 12. The presidential turkey pardon is one of America's weirdest political traditions, but the process for naming the lucky birds elevates the absurdity to an art form. These names aren't chosen by some solemn committee. They're often the result of a vote in the White House, and they almost always sound like they were thought up by a 5-year-old. We've had peas and carrots, corn and cob, tater and tot, and the unforgettable duo mac and cheese. This means that at some point, high-level government officials paused from dealing with national security and economic policy to seriously debate whether drumstick was a better name than wishbone. It's a comforting thought that even at the highest level of power, there's always time for some incredibly silly, food-based puns. 13. Are you constantly plagued by the anxiety of an unfair wishbone break? Does the holiday season fill you with dread over potential disputes about who got the bigger piece? Well, fear not, because some brilliant inventor patented a state-of-the-art solution to this non-existent problem. Yes, the wishbone breaking apparatus is a real, patented device. It's a contraption designed to hold the wishbone securely in place, allowing two people to pull on it with mechanically equal force, ensuring a scientifically perfect and indisputably fair snap every single time. This isn't just an invention, it's a monument to over-engineering, a testament to the human capacity for taking a simple, fun tradition and stripping all the joy out of it with needless complexity. It's the perfect gift for the family that has everything, including a lawyer on retainer for holiday disputes. 14. History is filled with revered saints who performed miracles and led lives of extraordinary faith. And then there's St. Thomas, the first, and to this day only, canonized turkey. In a brilliant piece of protest theater in 1989, activists from PETA gathered on the steps of the U.S. Capitol building and held a mock canonization ceremony for a live turkey. Their goal was to protest the consumption of meat on Thanksgiving by elevating one of the birds to holy status. Imagine the confusion of tourists that day, witnessing a solemn ceremony complete with formal proclamations for a very bewildered-looking turkey. While his sainthood isn't officially recognized by any major religion, for one brief, glorious moment, St. Thomas was the most revered bird in all of Washington, D.C. 15. Alcatraz was known as the Rock, an inescapable fortress designed to house America's most dangerous criminals. It was a place of ironclad rules and brutal discipline. But for one day a year, thanks to its most notorious inmate, it was also a pretty decent spot for a holiday meal. Al Capone, even while imprisoned in the world's most secure facility, still wielded enough power and influence to arrange a full-scale Thanksgiving dinner for the entire prison population. He pulled strings with the warden and organized a feast of turkey with all the trimmings. It wasn't just about generosity, it was a classic Capone power play, proving that even behind bars, he was the one who could make things happen. It just goes to show, even in Alcatraz, it pays to have friends in high places. 16. Every November, the world watches as the President of the United States performs a heartwarming act of mercy, pardoning a single, very lucky turkey. It's a beautiful moment of compassion, a symbol of holiday grace. It's also a complete sham. The bird you see on television, the one basking in the media spotlight, is known as the presidential turkey. This pampered bird gets to retire to a life of leisure. However, there's also an alternate turkey, its understudy, waiting in the wings. While the main turkey is being celebrated, a different, less fortunate bird is already in the White House kitchen, being prepared for the presidential dinner. The whole ceremony is a masterful piece of public relations, a feel-good distraction from the delicious and very much not pardoned main course. 17. When you think of the most exclusive places for a holiday dinner, restaurants with 3 Michelin stars might come to mind. But in 1969, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong booked a table for 2 in a much more exclusive location: the Moon. And what was on their first ever menu on an extraterrestrial surface? A packet of freeze-dried roasted turkey. Yes, the first meal eaten on the Moon was essentially a space-age Thanksgiving dinner. It's hard to imagine a more surreal scene. 2 astronauts, millions of miles from home, in the complete silence and vacuum of space, eating turkey out of a pouch. It proves that no matter where humanity goes, we seem to always take our strangest culinary traditions with us. 18. Every family has its own quirky little tradition, but one family took this concept to a whole new, somewhat horrifying level by creating the so-called porcupen. The problem was simple. For a large family, 2 turkey legs were never enough. The father's solution was both ingenious and terrifying. He would simply sew a dozen extra legs onto the turkey before roasting. Using a needle and thread, he transformed an ordinary bird into something resembling a centipede from a horror movie. Imagine this culinary monstrosity, this Frankenstein of the poultry world, being brought to the holiday table. It wasn't just a meal, it was a work of art that simultaneously solved the drumstick shortage and likely gave the children lifelong nightmares. 19. Forget about a peaceful family dinner. In the 19th century, especially in New York City, Thanksgiving was a day of absolute chaos and anarchy. Young people, mostly from the working class, organized so-called fantastical parades. They would don grotesque masks and costumes, arm themselves with loud musical instruments, and storm into the homes of wealthy citizens. Their goal? Not to share holiday cheer, but to demand money, food, and alcohol in a manner that bordered on outright extortion. It was a cross between Halloween and the movie The Purge. Instead of passing the gravy, you were passing over your wallets. It's a stark reminder that what is now the coziest holiday of the year was once an occasion for mass riots. 20. Today, the Butterball Turkey Talk Line is a high-tech call center with hundreds of experts ready to answer any of your turkey-related questions. But back in 1981, when it all began, the operation was much more modest and far more amusing. The line consisted of just 6 home economists who answered calls. From their own kitchens, on their own home phones. Picture these women, possibly in the middle of preparing their own dinners, patiently explaining to panicked Americans how to thaw a turkey, or answering such classic questions as, "Is it safe to cook a turkey that my cat has slept on?" It was a charming, somewhat chaotic start, proving that great empires sometimes begin with a few phones in a kitchen. 21. In the world of culinary records, there's a fine line between ambition and disaster, and a town in Ohio crossed it with a literal crack. In an attempt to create the world's largest pumpkin pie, bakers constructed a true monster measuring 20 feet in diameter and weighing over 3,600 pounds. It was a triumph of engineering and pastry arts. At least it seemed that way. The problem is that when you create a pie the size of a small car, the laws of physics start to work against you. Under its own colossal weight, the pie began to crack and then simply collapsed into a huge, sticky orange mess. It wasn't just a culinary failure, it was a tragedy of epic proportions, a sweet reminder that sometimes bigger isn't better. 22. Imagine Thanksgiving, but instead of turkey and football, there are children in scary masks knocking on your door demanding sweets. This isn't an alternate reality, it's how Thanksgiving was celebrated in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This tradition, known as Ragamuffin Day, essentially turned Thanksgiving into a second Halloween. Children would dress in rags, paint their faces, and go from house to house, asking for apples, candy, or small change. It was so popular that ragamuffin parades overshadowed any other holiday events. Then, for reasons that are not entirely clear, the tradition simply vanished, leaving us with only a strange, historical echo of a time when Thanksgiving had a serious identity crisis. 23. While all of America gathered at the holiday table, one of its founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, was likely sitting in his study rolling his eyes. He openly hated the idea of a national Thanksgiving Day, and it wasn't because he disliked turkey. His objections were purely based on principle. Jefferson was a staunch advocate for the separation of church and state and believed that when the president issued a proclamation calling on citizens for Thanksgiving and prayer, it was a dangerous violation of this principle. To him, it was tantamount to the government telling people when and how to pray. So, while others celebrated, Jefferson was essentially staging a silent protest, making him the ultimate Thanksgiving buzzkill in American history. 24. Everyone knows the majestic image of the bald eagle, the national symbol of the United States. But if Benjamin Franklin had had his way, the country's coat of arms would be adorned with a turkey. Franklin openly despised the eagle, calling it a bird of bad moral character that is too lazy to fish for itself and often steals from other birds. Instead, he admired the turkey, calling it a much more respectable bird and a true original native of America. He praised its courage, claiming that a turkey would not hesitate to attack anyone who invaded its farmyard. Imagine that alternate reality. Instead of a majestic eagle on dollar bills, we'd have a bird that we now associate mostly with gravy and stuffing. 25. The classic image of the first Thanksgiving dinner is burned into our collective memory. Pilgrims and Native Americans gathered around a long table, centered by a magnificent golden brown roasted turkey. It's a lovely picture, but it's almost certainly a complete fabrication. Based on historical accounts from the time, the main course at that legendary 1621 feast was likely venison, as the Wampanoag guests brought 5 deer with them. While wildfowl was on the menu, it probably included ducks, geese, and swans, not necessarily turkey. Even more surprisingly, the table would have been loaded with seafood like lobster, clams, and mussels, which were abundant and considered peasant food at the time. So the centerpiece of your modern Thanksgiving meal was probably a no-show at the original event, which was essentially a 3-day seafood and venison barbecue. 26. During the bleak years of the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt faced a nation struggling with widespread poverty and food shortages. With turkey prices soaring, he and his administration floated a bold, if utterly unappealing idea. Why not replace the traditional Thanksgiving turkey with something more affordable, like mackerel? The government actually launched a campaign to promote this oily, strong-flavored fish as the new patriotic holiday dish. As you can probably guess, the American public was not having it. The idea of gathering the family around a steaming platter of broiled mackerel for their big holiday feast was met with a collective, nationwide, no thank you. The proposal sank faster than a lead weight, proving that even in the depths of a national crisis, there are some traditions you just don't mess with. 27. While most of the country was taking a day off to feast and give thanks, President James K. Polk was busy being the ultimate holiday buzzkill. In his diary entry from Thanksgiving Day, 1845, he didn't write about family, gratitude, or delicious food. Instead, he complained that the whole holiday was a complete waste of time and that government offices were being closed and all business suspended. He lamented that he was in my office attending to my public duties, as if he were the only responsible adult in a nation of slackers. He viewed the entire celebration as an unnecessary distraction from the very important business of running the country. He was, in essence, that one boss who sends you work emails on a national holiday, a true Grinch of Thanksgiving. 28. In Charles Dickens's classic novel, A Christmas Carol, the grand finale of Scrooge's redemption is when he buys the Cratchit family a massive prize goose for their Christmas dinner. Ever wonder why it wasn't a turkey? It wasn't just a random choice. It was a reflection of economic reality in 19th century England. At the time, geese were the common man's holiday bird, relatively affordable and widely available. Turkeys, on the other hand, were an expensive, imported luxury item, a status symbol reserved for the wealthy elite. So, when Scrooge sends that goose, he's providing a wonderful, celebratory meal. If he had sent a turkey, it would have been like gifting them a Ferrari, a ridiculously extravagant gesture that would have seemed completely over the top. The humble goose was the far more relatable and realistic symbol of holiday cheer. 29. Go ahead, try to sing Jingle Bells without immediately picturing snow, sleighs, and Santa Claus. It's nearly impossible. But this iconic Christmas anthem was never intended to be a Christmas song at all. It was originally written in 1857 by a man named James Lord Pierpont with the title One Horse Open Sleigh, and it was composed specifically to be performed at a Thanksgiving Sunday school concert. The lyrics make no mention of Christmas presents or anything remotely related to the December holiday. It was simply a fun, secular song about the joys of winter sleigh rides. How it made the leap from a Thanksgiving novelty tune to the undisputed king of Christmas carols is a historical mystery, but it's a classic case of a song finding its true calling completely by accident. 30. There are few things that scream America quite like the tradition of deep frying a turkey. It's a method that promises a perfectly moist bird with incredibly crispy skin in a fraction of the time it takes to roast one. It also happens to be one of the single most dangerous things you can possibly do in your backyard. Every year, fire departments across the country issue desperate warnings as people drop a frozen or wet turkey into a giant vat of boiling oil, creating a massive fireball that engulfs their deck, their garage, and sometimes their entire house. It has become such a predictable disaster that Thanksgiving is a peak day for home cooking fires. It's the perfect holiday storm of overconfidence, questionable physics, and a whole lot of flammable oil. 31. For most of us, Thanksgiving is a marathon of eating, a test of our stomach's capacity. But for a select few, it's a competitive sport. Welcome to the world of professional turkey eating contests, where athletes of appetite gather to do the unthinkable. These are not your average holiday eaters. These are finely tuned machines of mass consumption. The goal is simple: eat as much roasted turkey meat as humanly possible within a strict time limit, usually 10 minutes. The current world record holder, the legendary Joey Chestnut, managed to devour an incredible 9.35 pounds of turkey meat in one sitting. That's the equivalent of eating an entire small turkey by yourself in the time it takes to watch a few YouTube videos. It's both horrifying and deeply impressive. 32. Before the NFL made Thanksgiving football a national institution, the holiday was the undisputed territory of college rivalries. In the late 19th century, Thanksgiving was the biggest day of the year for American football, the equivalent of today's Super Bowl. The tradition started with Princeton and Yale, who played their championship game on Thanksgiving Day in New York City. It was a massive social event that drew tens of thousands of spectators. The timing was perfect. College students were home for the holiday break, making it easy to assemble teams and draw huge crowds. It became so popular that by the 1890s, over 5,000 games were being played across the country on Thanksgiving Day, cementing the holiday's unbreakable bond with the brutal, beautiful game of football. 33. Plymouth Rock is one of America's most sacred historical artifacts. It's the legendary spot where the Pilgrims supposedly first set foot on American soil, a symbol of courage, perseverance, and the very beginning of the nation. It's also a complete and total fabrication, invented by one guy more than a century after the fact. The Pilgrims themselves never mentioned landing on any specific rock in their detailed writings. The entire story originated in 1741, when a 94-year-old man named Thomas Faunce, who wasn't even born when the Mayflower arrived, claimed that his father told him that he had been told that this was the exact rock. Based on this incredibly shaky, third-hand account, the townspeople hoisted the rock up, promptly broke it in half, and a national myth was born. It's the perfect symbol for Thanksgiving, a story we all love, based on something that almost certainly never happened. That was our collection of historical Thanksgiving madness, but we know for a fact the absurdity doesn't stop there. This is where you come in. What is the single dumbest, most unbelievable historical Thanksgiving fact that we were foolish enough to miss? Dig through the archives, find something even weirder, and call us out in the comments below. If you appreciate history that isn't afraid to get weird, show some support with a like and subscribe for more.